Stay tuned. It's part 2 of the second helix build. Just to recap, this double track helix is going to take us from level 2 up to level 3, and this helix is what I'm calling the floating helix. So before we get started, I had a request asking me how I went about cutting out my sub roadbed to this helix. So what we're going to do now, I'll cross over and just take you through that process. On the workbench here, I've got my trusty Azito router. Now you can see there, the router bit that I'm using, I have these guides at the top. Now the way I've set up, I'm actually coming in from the top, and this board actually gets screwed into the top of the plywood. You can see that guide is using the template, and that's how it sort of goes around the template, and obviously, you know, it's screwed to the actual plywood sheet that I've got. That's on the bottom, and the cutting part is doing the cutting flush with the template because of that guide roller on top there. Let's head off outside. I'll show you how I cut out a couple pieces. So that's my technique on how I go through the process and cutting out each of these sub road beds to the helix. Each piece of the plywood, I get about 16 pieces with very, very minimal left over. 16 pieces, as you know, I've cut these into 1/8 pieces, so it does 2 full loops on the helix. So I usually go through, well in this case, this is 4 tiers high, so I'll go through 2 of those sheets. And you can sort of see the pile down there waiting to be laid. The foundation tier, so it's between 1.9 and 2.4%, and that depends, you know, whether you're on the inside or the outside track. And obviously in the real world, you know, it's very hard to get perfect grades on every part of a helix. But I'm very happy with how this has turned out. It's got very nice smooth transitions, and it's turned out very well. So once again, the inside support legs were all cut 5mm shorter, so it's got a very slight slant towards the inside of the helix. Yeah, I know, I can hear everyone. What the? And look, I've done it on the first one, and I know there was a few concerns there, but to date it's been really good, it's worked well. So with that said, I'm going to cross over and I'll just take you through myself installing this first tier for the foundation. So there you go. That was pretty much my technique, going through and laying that foundation tier. Now I can't go any further. Obviously I need to lay the track up to the top of tier 1 before I can then continue with tier 2 of the helix. I did end up coming back. You would have seen in the video that each of the end supports I put in, and that one there, but I didn't have the middle ones in. I actually came back at a later stage, and what I did, I got my trusty leveler, digital leveler here, and I've got a setting on it where it's got the percent of grade, and as you can see there, percent there I've got is 2.1%, and then what I did, just make sure everything was even, and then individually cut out each of the outside and the inside with carefully measuring, just to make sure these sections here weren't buckled and so on. So before I cross over to the other piece of work that I've done around the helix, I'll just quickly show you, obviously I'm starting to measure out my track leading up to the crossover here with a set of points. Basically I've got the road bed in place all the way up here. Here another set of points here, it'll go off to a branch line. Everything that you see here is actually off the plans that I did in any rail. So basically not only did I have the track design, but I actually had all the bench work measured out and where I needed it, and etc, etc. But anyway, getting off the track there, it's coming around. So I've got all the sound deadening material now laid, leading into the foundation tier. I'll take that all the way around up to this point, and obviously I need to come back and get all that track laid all the way up to this before I can progress. I've cut out and reconfigured the center of this helix. Now there was a question, why did you fasten it to the concrete floor? If I put weight on this, I needed to make sure underneath, so this center piece here, I needed to make sure it wasn't going to buckle and move this leg down here now that it didn't have any support on the other side. So for no other reason, it was a structural strength thing, just make sure there was no movement where I was putting weight around on level 1. Hopefully that explains it. So no earthquakes, but that's why I had to do that. And you can see here, I've taken out a whole bunch of support, and I had other legs coming down to support this side, and I had a middle brace there to make sure that didn't buckle with the weight on this side. I've got access in here to lay the track and the foundation stuff on the helix on this side. For this section, you can see here, I've put in a full brace that goes right across here. I've put legs. I use these adjustable feet for the legs that I do put in, and then I've braced it all with this 12mm single piece plywood. My only decision now is basically, do I take these pieces out and then do the same thing with another single piece running along here, same configuration of what I've done there. So with that said, that's been the work to date. As I said, what's coming up, I'll need to start doing that track work, coming all the way around and up to the top of the foundation tier.